Talk Show is brought to you by
Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
So we are here tonight with Chatters That Matters. Let's talk about it. And I am your show host, Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce, MD, the celebrity doc, with my co-host, the world famous Hurricane H. And tonight we are here bringing you an extra special guest. Our guest tonight is Dr. Akmal Muwakil, and Dr. Akmal Muwakil has been a complementary medicine naturopath for 45 years. That's 45 years of experience. He has a PhD in nutrition, and the doctor is a master Tuina body therapist and Chinese herbalist. He's also the president and founder of the Energy Institute. And I've got something interrupting my screen. Energy Institute of the Healing Arts Foundation, Incorporated, and the Healing Arts Acupuncture Wellness Studio. He has provided Tuina CEUs to massage therapists, amongst others. Dr. Akmal teaches in many different venues and is active giving instruction in Clubhouse. So you'll definitely want to check Dr. Akmal out in Clubhouse. He studied acupuncture with Dr. Yun Chin and herbal therapies Tai Chi and Qigong with Master Heg Robinson and Master Fred McShin. His body therapy skill began in the 80s when he attended the International School of Shiatsu and the Potomac Massage Training Institute for Western Massage. He received his BS, MA, and PhD from Clayton College of Natural Medicine in 2008 and Nutrition. In 2014, Dr. Muwakil graduated from the College of Acupuncture and Therapeutics with a degree in acupuncture from Nova Scotia, Canada. Dr. Muwakil is a gifted author. He's author of Preventing and Healing of Female Imbalances, Cleansing Within the Seasons Through the Art of Fasting, Sweet Mysteries of Life, a handbook to naturally heal diabetes mellitus, and Food Combining for Optimum Health. Let's welcome Dr. Akmal Muwakil.
Greetings and welcome, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of my knowledge with your audience on this particular call. Thank you.
Dr. Muwakil, thank you so much for being with us, and we're excited for you to bring all of that vast array of knowledge that you have about nutrition. So I'd kind of like to jump off, starting this conversation, talking about two things that people are really hitting hard on right now in terms of diets. You know, I mean, every few years or so, you'll have new diets coming around or new nutritional therapies, new superfoods, so on and so forth. But the big talk right now is on lectins and CMOS. So what can you tell us about lectins?
Well, when we start to talk about lectins, you know, we have to look at the fact of, well, let me digress for a minute. when I was a child, mom would put them beans in a pot and soak them overnight. And I'd be like, why is she doing that? Just put the beans on the stove and cook them. Well, I didn't learn until I became a nutritionist that mom understood lectins. Where she got that information from, I have no idea. But she understood the factor that lectins create disharmony in the body. It slows the digestive tract down. It causes people to be bloated, constipated. And when we start looking at lectins are on, you have a lot of people who eat nothing but raw food. And so when they eat raw lectins like legumes and beans, what they'll find is they can find that they have gas afterwards. When we eat beans, we used to have that saying, beans, good for your heart. The more you eat, the more you fart, And so when we start talking about that, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that this protein has to have, proteins have to have an acid base anyway in order for them to be degraded. And when I say degraded, I mean when they be broken down in the system. But lectins are a little more special than that because most proteins are broken down in the stomach because of the nitrogen element in them. But with lectins, they kind of slip through there because of the factor that most lectins are bound to starches, that protein and that starch together. And so when you have that, that can confuse the entire body, and especially it confuses the stomach, which has the hydrochloric acid in it. So then it'll get down into the small intestines, which the beginning of the small intestines is an environment that is alkaline. And so it won't break down in that alkaline environment. What it'll do is it'll start to ferment. And that's why a lot of times people say, woo, I ate them beans and man, my abdomen just rolling. I'm just, oh my God. And that's because of the fact that their body wasn't able to break down the lectins. And so lectins, you're talking about things like beans, legumes, peas, soybeans, peanuts, some whole grains, and especially wheat. And especially when you eat these foods when they're out of season. See, because if you eat them when they're out of season, then then the digestive tract is really not going to break them down. But when you eat them in season,
let's talk about that. Let's stop right there and talk about that. When you say eating them out of season, what is the season for most legumes or for most lectin foods?
The season is starting to come around in terms of now, because you have to understand that beans and peas have heat to them. They're warming foods. And so during the autumn and during the winter is when you really should be eating beans, and they should be cooked. In the spring and the summer, you don't eat too many beans. You might eat a few chickpeas. And most of the time when you eat the chickpeas, they've been made into hummus. And so that breaks it down so that your body can absorb it more. But the other piece of that is also the factor that because of its quality, it can cause you to have more mucus. And that's what lectins do. They create that mucus within your system. And so you're wondering why is my nose running? Why am I congested? And you're congested because of the fact that they didn't break down. So, but if you
checks out, because I mean, it always seems like we get that congestion and that, kind of heaviness, the postnasal drip, all of that seems to happen during the fall and winter months. During the
Absolutely.
summer and spring, we tend to be, if we're not allergic to, the stuff that's blowing around in the air when the flowers come out, we don't tend to have all of that congestion and that heavy mucus and stuff. We're not coughing and all. So that checks out. That actually makes sense.
And see, the autumn, which later I can tell you about the program I have going on, but the autumn is the season of the lungs and the large intestines, which means that this is the season to oxygenate the blood through the oxygenation of the lungs and to get rid of the waste byproducts from the foods that we've been eating through the large intestines. And when lectins don't break down, they sit in the small intestines and they ferment.
Mm-hmm.
And as they continue to ferment, they continue to increase the sulfur and the methane in there, which then is going to cause issues. And a lot of those issues sometimes that you get when you eat lectins is you wind up constipated. And if you have things like diverticulitis or Crohn's disease or any kind of bowel obstruction, what you're going to find is that it's worse once you eat these lectins, because of the factor that your digestive tract is already shot because of the factor that you have that disharmony. But the second part of that is the factor that they've sat there and they've begun to, what I like to title it is that they still cooking in the body when they should be leaving the body, because the body is 98.6 plus. And so, if that's sitting there in that environment, it's still popping and cooking around in the intestinal tract. And so that's also what causes people to gain what we call weight, which is basically waste, because of the factor that this fermentation now is leaking into their gut, from their gut into their blood, which now is causing cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes, fibromyalgia. I mean, all of those kinds of things because of the factor that you just ate legumes.
This is what we call leaky gut syndrome. And, we even have the leaky blood-brain barrier. So it doesn't just affect the gut, because there's the nervous connection between the gut and the brain. And I understand that they often call the gut the second brain.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the other thing about lectins is the fact that they block the movement of the red blood cell so that it can start to coagulate together. Once it starts to do that, we wind up having tumors, aneurysms, because of the fact that the blood isn't able to flow, so it starts to block. So we really have to be careful how we eat lectins. They need to be boiled. Okay. They need to be rinsed and set overnight so that it opens up not only the water solubles of it, but also the fat solubles of it, so that when it goes into the system, it becomes fiber. And the fiber then begins to push the waste byproducts out of the body so that it begins to heal the intestinal tract, and especially the gut, so that now the body can receive nutrients and absorb nutrients from foods that they're eating. Some of the side effects from that is like vomiting, nausea. You wind up having an upset abdomen, and if it gets real worse, the body's real interested, because what the body don't want in it, it works to get it out. And so
beans, magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot.
Right. And so what happens is that it either comes out through your mouth or it comes out through the rear, but it's coming out of there. and so you wind up with dysentery and diarrhea. I mean, and bloating and gas. And so, we have to be careful when we eat those, and we have to make sure that they're cooked well. You got to make sure that they're cooked well, because if they're not cooked well, that causes the issue because they don't digest. Yeah.
Now, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and I can't remember what his name. It's Dr. Grundy or Dr. Grundy or something like that. And he was saying that the only way that they should be cooked is with a pressure cooker. And I mean, I grew up on beans. We grew up on black beans, and we never owned a pressure
Right.
cooker. So what do you say to that? I mean, we've been cooking beans for a long time, and there are many countries that all they do is beans pretty much as a main staple in their diet, and they're not using pressure cookers. So what would you say about that?
So what I'd say about that is that on one hand, he is right, because you need them to be cooked at a high temperature.
Mm-hmm.
But for countries and people who that's their staple of life, their body has become immune to it and has adapted to it so that they can eat it because they fix it the same way all the time.
Mm.
When they're a child and after being breastfed, and then they go to the table and they give it to the child, may start to have those kind of issues. But
Right.
once the body has established that this is a staple of life for this body, then what happens is the
Right.
body then will say, oh, okay, come on in. I got something for you. I know exactly what to do with you. But
Right.
here in the
And
West,
I'd actually like to address a point that you just made when you talked about the breastfeeding of the babies. If beans are a staple in a woman's diet, and she is eating a lot of beans during breastfeeding, a lot of times you will get colicky babies because that does pass through the breast milk. And so, when you have a baby, mom brings it in and it's doing a lot of crying, and, the drawing up that they do, and just generally letting us know that it's uncomfortable and having what we call colic, then you really do need to ask the mother about the diet. And, if you're the mom, you really need to think about what are you eating that may be coming through that breast milk. And beans are definitely one of those things that baby isn't going to be happy with you about.
absolutely. I mean, seriously. And so like as you said, then the baby winds up having it, and then later on when the baby sits the table food, the body says, oh, we had this before, wait a minute, let's see what we need to do with this here. And then after a while the body will get used to it and say, oh yeah, come on, yeah, we got you, that kind of thing. But here in the West, beans is not our staple.
Right.
Okay? Beans is not our staple.
Now, hurricane comes from Morocco. Is beans the staple in Morocco hurricane?
Not really the main, not a staple. It's more of something that you have every now and then. So it's not really a common food. Usually it's a winter food. And
Right.
same thing with lentils, and that's where you kind of warm up with those things. And it's funny. First of all, Doc, I was just absorbing all the stuff you're saying because I'm being a sponge right now. I'm just taking it in, But one thing you mentioned about the old fashioned, like your mom doing it, where it just stays overnight. That's how I've seen my parents did it, and my mom specifically. I'm talking, and this was in Morocco back in the days. It's amazing that it's worldwide, and that's actually the old traditional way to do it. And yes, the concept was that it takes away all the lectins and whatever starches and all the stuff that could be there, whether it's rice or beans or any of those things. That's the same concept. And this way, it's that all the sugar business and all the bad things are gone. And you're right. If it's done properly, you don't have those bloating, feelings and the gases and all the methane and all that. And then
Yes.
obviously, if it's well cooked, and it's funny you talked about pressure cookers, and while we did have, like, in the traditional way in Morocco, for example, it's the tagines, which is a pottery thing that they use to cook,
Right, right.
over wood and then coal and all that. They use pressure cookers for these specific food, lentils, beans, and stuff, to just get rid of all that and really
Right.
super cook them. It's amazing. I'm just listening to this, and I know we're talking about today's show is really you are what you eat, and we have to be very mindful of the things that we put in. There is obviously qualities to those things. I mean, beans have, and hopefully we can discuss the benefits of what they'll do to our bodies, and nutrients, and value in them. But right now we're talking about, like, really what to do to avoid any side effects, I would say, to having something that's healthy or something good for our diet. I mean, a lot of folks are vegans, vegetarians, and legumes are part of their diet, and beans are just part of it. And it is probably one of the biggest sources, protein, such as soybeans and all the beans, I would say. So, doctor, if you don't mind, what would be that? We're talking right now about all the side effects or the bad effects, and are there any more side effects, besides the gas and the bloating, and potentially, like you said, the ulcers that can happen, and the digestive system, the gut problems that you can get, and maybe even worse things. um, how bad can it get, if somebody's really having that diet? And Dr. Uh, uh, Cheryl, you mentioned something about the babies. They
Yes.
get their food from mom, at first, and that's important. And so if the mommies are, not aware of this, that could be a problem, and they may not even know why my child is crying all this time, and maybe there is something that you're not aware of, and hopefully people can listen and get some feedback today, and that can take home and maybe apply. So what do you say to that?
One of the things that's actually kind of important, especially when we're talking about children, a lot of times children are, playing at mom's feet, and they're watching mom prepare food and so on and so forth. And, mom may be preparing beans, putting the beans into pot. And while she's putting the beans in the pot, she turns her head. Some of the beans don't go into the pot. They end up on the floor. It's really important to retrieve those beans and not let the child get hold of them, because the child may eat them raw.
Yeah.
And it actually does not take a lot of beans to create enough toxicity, particularly in a child. I mean, depending on what type of bean it is,
Right.
5 raw beans can make a person mortally ill, can actually even kill a person with enough toxins. Baby is obviously significantly smaller than an adult. So eating just a couple of raw beans can make a baby incredibly sick. So that is something mothers definitely need to be aware when they're preparing things like beans that, if uncooked, could be toxic. If they do drop them, to make sure that they retrieve them so little junior can't get to them. And also, they stick beans up their noses and their ears. I can't tell you how many beans I've retrieved from noses and ears.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, when we start looking at that, because people do eat beans, and like you said, we have vegans who that's one of their major staples is beans, and so when we look at that, there are ways that you can intake them, because they are part of our food supply, and they're a heavy part of our food supply, and especially in the fall and the winter time. Okay. And so when you take them in, you want to also, for instance, one of the things that you can cook with the beans to help them is things like onions and leeks and garlic, because of the factor that the sulfur in that is going to also help break down. Okay. And so, and the lectin. And so when you do that, and, I used to think that she was putting it in there for seasoning. I said, oh, that's the way you season it. You put the onions in there, and,
For the taste.
right, for the taste,
Right.
But but when you start looking at the factor that you're basically, and let me say this, and I'll get back to it. You're basically looking at the factor that you're a chemist, and your body is a chemistry factory, and everything that you put in it, you wear, you think, you touch, has to do with chemistry. And so when you put this food, any type of food in your body, you're dealing with the chemistry, and your body has to say, what am I going to do with this chemistry that just came through here? Are we going to keep it? Are we going to absorb it, kick it out, or just store it? And so when it does that, then you have to say, okay, so what do I need to make sure that that doesn't happen again? And so when you put them onions and the leeks and that garlic in there, what happens is that
it tastes so good.
It does. It really does.
You're making me hungry right now.
It really does taste good, And so when you put that in there, what happens is that you change the molecular structure of the lectin, so that the sulfur now works to help to break it down. So when it gets into your system, it's yummy, not, oh, my tummy. You know what I'm saying?
Love that. I love that. I love
it. So yeah, I mean, now the other thing that I tell people is this, and Dr. Cheryl, I'm big on two things. One is digestive enzymes, and the other one is probiotics. Mm-hmm. And so if you decide you want to eat some lectins, and you don't want to go through the issue of soaking them overnight or putting them in a pressure cooker, and you just want to eat them, my suggestion is to keep you from having all that gas and all that other stuff is to take the digestive enzymes, because lectins can affect the body so much to the point where it can cause autoimmune deficiency syndromes.
Wow. Yes. And that's actually a good tip, Dr. Akmal, because while hopefully people are watching our show and they're getting educated on how to do those beans, but there'll be a lot of people who aren't necessarily preparing them in that way, and then we're eating out. So if you're eating out, you don't know how they're being prepared. So taking your digestive enzymes and your probiotics can help you from having problems with the beans when you eat out. Now, can we talk about what are some of the benefits of beans?
Okay. So they say that beans good for your heart. And that's the truth. Okay. Because the fiber in beans moves waste out of the small intestines so that the small intestines can absorb nutrients to send to the heart so the heart can circulate the blood. Okay. Also, because they're protein is the building block of the body. Okay. And so because of the protein that's in them, and it's usable, if they're broken down properly, the protein is usable. Okay, because a lot of times we'll put in protein and it's not usable, but the protein is usable. So you're gonna find yourself having more energy. You're gonna find that your muscles function in such a way where you don't get cramps and feel sluggish. They don't feel tired, that kind of thing. And the other piece of that is that once it moves stuff through the gut, you also find that the brain becomes energized because of the factor of that. So beans are definitely good for us, but again, you should be eating them in their season, and you should never eat beans raw. Now, if you decide,
a lot of people eat beans very partially cooked, lightly cooked. A lot of people who are on raw food diets will eat peas in their salads, and peas, they're in the legume family, and they, contain lectins. is it dangerous for them to eat those raw or partially cooked peas in a salad or even in a lot of Asian dishes? Is it enough that the peas are just slightly blanched? Because that's a very common practice with the Asian dishes and many other cultural dishes will just have the peas very lightly blanched. So is it safe to eat them that way?
Well, again, it's how your body's going to react to it. And everybody's body is different. The thing is that, for instance, the Asians, one of the things that the Asians do is, they balance food. Okay. When I went to China to study, it blew my mind the way that they ate. It just blew my mind because the food that they serve here in the US is American Chinese food. Okay. It's not Chinese food that they eat in China. Okay. I didn't see no shrimp fried rice and no hookang or whatever else they have here. But when they do cook foods, they balance the energy of the food more so than for taste. And so when they eat legumes, they always balance that with something that's going to make sure that it digests. And see, in this country, we just have no idea what to eat. We just off the chart, And within the Asian culture, and I studied both Japanese medicine, Michio Kushi, and I studied Chinese food therapy. And so with that, you look at the seasons, you look at the organs of the season, then you look at the foods that have the energy for that season, so that when you eat that food, what will happen is that you will then begin to get the nutrients from it. And so when we start talking about lectins, we have to talk about the fact that yes, they are problematic. They're very problematic, but they also provide us with certain nutrients or help the body to absorb nutrients. And that's basically what we want, However,
Now, would lectins be considered one of the nutrient dense foods?
Not necessarily, because of the factor of its ability not to be absorbed. Okay. So we would use lectin as a broom. Okay. To sweep out. That's why, you might put a lectin and it's a bad combination, but I grew up eating it. Beans and rice.
Beans and rice.
Oh,
Yes.
we love those.
Boy,
Everybody loves
all the world.
it. You can't go wrong with that combo.
Right.
Sorry,
I mean, and you have starch and protein, and they're not compatible. But for some reason,
It tastes so
when
good.
oh my God, when you put those two together, they go in and they do their job. You don't have that bloating and and all those other things because of the lectins. So somewhere, somehow, the rice and the beans, when they come together, they balance the flora in the gut, so that what happens is that the gut now recognizes what they are, breaks it down, moves the waste byproducts out, and boom. Because if you eat beans today, tomorrow morning you see them in a stew. Okay. And you see them as fiber. You see them as fiber because that's what they do. They're supposed to go through and pull everything out. They do the same thing that green vegetables do. Green vegetables go in and move everything out. Boom. And so when you eat lectins and you eat them properly, what will happen is you will then begin to see that one, they regulate the bowel. and two, they move out any waste that's been trapped in the bowel tract.
Now, it's kind of really interesting when we talk about how the beans and rice, although they shouldn't be eaten together, but yet they are eaten together and they're complementary and it works. I find it interesting that we kind of naturally gravitate towards combining certain tastes that do things like that. For example, we put cinnamon on our sweet potatoes and things that have sugars. We put cinnamon in them and they help to regulate the insulin, and cinnamon on sweet potatoes tastes so good. We tend to combine things that work in a complementary fashion. And we've been doing it for eons.
Mm-hmm.
How did people know to put these things together? How does our body tell us that these things go together and they're going to nourish us the most effectively and prevent us from getting sick? I mean, I guess a lot of people probably died along the way, combining stuff and trying stuff and sampling stuff until we got it figured out.
Absolutely.
Well, if I may, there's another possibility, which is, people use these two combos, like you mentioned, rice and beans. But again, culturally, there's other things that they might have in addition with their meals, and maybe that's what's helping to break down differently, or maybe avoiding some. And again, in the Spanish culture, there's rice and beans, but there's meats there. There's other things that are part of it. The spices also are part of that.
Lots of pepper. Lots of peppers.
Maybe there again. You mentioned Dr. Akmal. You said something about the body is all chemicals, right? It's all chemical. Factory working the magic. That stuff is all happening at the same time. To your point, maybe the rice and the beans, as they get together with all the other spices, they start doing their own business and understand, and the body kind of works better that way. Also, you mentioned something about the probiotics, and I do have a question. We can get back to it later, which is basically which ones people can use, maybe to help. And finally, before I just want to. This is maybe a funny question, but I know you mentioned something about the heart, but there is a myth about kidneys shaped as in our body kidneys. Is there an actual correlation to that, or is that a myth? Does it really work for the kidneys?
Are you talking about kidney beans?
Kidney beans, yeah.
I mean, kidney beans. The heat from the kidney beans balance the energies of the kidneys.
Interesting.
That's like black beans. If you're anemic and you cook black beans and you drink the juice of the black beans, it'll heal the anemia.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it'll increase the blood flow. Women that I've worked with who were in a state of gestation, which is pregnancy, I would have them to drink black beans at least once a week to reinforce things like folic acid, things like the B vitamins. You're talking about things like magnesium. So that as they continue in their trimesters, their blood would be nice and their body would be healthy. Wow. So when we use beans, we can use beans as either food or we can use it as a medicine. Yeah. And if we understand,
and medicine be thy food, and thy food be thy medicine.
Absolutely. And so if we begin to look at that and see, our issue as humans, and especially here in North America, is the factor that we want it to taste good. We don't want, I don't want nothing sour, bitter. Oh no, I ain't doing that. And those are the foods that we need. Like I said, seasonal. So each season, as I said, a set of organs are at their peak. This is the season for the lungs, large intestines. This is the season when the body starts to look for warmth. This is the season of spices.
Mhm.
This is when you start to put spices on your food.
Yep.
So that in the wintertime, you really engage things like cayenne pepper, hot stuff. Okay. But this is the season when you start to warm, because in the springtime, that's the season when you start to get cool things.
Right.
So that in the summertime, you give the coolest of the coolest because of the heat of the summer. And the summer has to do, which we're moving out of now. The summer has to deal with the heart, small intestines, which has to deal with digestion and blood circulation of nutrients. But it also has to deal with the pericardium, which protects the heart, and the sand jowl. The sand jowl, the three burning spaces: the pelvis, the abdomen, and the chest. And that's all digestive. Your digestive tract goes from here to here. Okay. And so it goes through those three burning spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we move into autumn, the spices help to keep that mucus away, because this is the season when all of the stuff that we did in the spring and the summer come back and say, you ate all of that snots and stuff all the time. Now here it comes building up on you. Here it comes building up on you. And you talking about, where the Kleenex? Oh, I can't breathe. And the interesting thing is this: there are two cleansing seasons and there's two fortifying seasons. I teach this in a class that's coming up. And the spring and the autumn are cleansing seasons. The winter and the summer are fortifying seasons. This is when you fortify the nutrients in the body. And see, if we understand that and eat the foods in the season in the manner that we should, what then begins to happen is that the body stays healthy and we don't wind up having issues. What you're going to see now, and Dr. Cheryl, you probably see it a lot within the next 2 to 3 months, is people with bowel issues, and lung issues, because of the fact that this is the season. This is the season. If we really wanted to get rid of COVID, this is the season to do it. Okay, because of the fact that this is the season. If in the summertime we did what we needed to do so that the blood is rich in nutrients, and the small intestines has done its job, and we don't have no waste floating around. During this season, we oxygenate the blood. The blood increases and powers those nutrients to do nothing but enhance the immune system, so that anything that knocks at the door, the immune system say, go find somebody else. You can't come up in here. And we can get rid of that. And because if we go back to the beginning of COVID came right after the lung season. It came in the wintertime.
Now I'm going to interrupt you here, and I'm going to ask you a political question, because this is something that has just come up today. I saw it in the news that our governor here in California is talking about making this the first state that is making it basically illegal for doctors to have these kind of conversations, talking about building the immune system as opposed to go take the shot. We can possibly lose our licenses. And for those of us like myself, where I have to give my patients all of the information and the risk and the benefits, and then I believe my patients should be allowed to make the choice that they feel is best for them. That kind of language isn't going to be accepted. It's the toe the company line, make everybody get the shot, so on, so forth. How do you feel, Dr. Ottenwell, about talking about building systemic cellular immunity as the treatment, as opposed to pushing these immunizations and all. How effective do you think that would be as a therapeutic modality in terms of getting rid of COVID?
That would be tragic, straight out. Because not that I'm against getting a shot. If a person decides they want to get a shot, well, go get your shot. I don't have no problem with that. My issue is this: you can't demand me to do something because you say that I have to do this. You see, you take away my rights. I mean, it's like what just happened with the abortion. So that means that,
don't even start down that road.
that in a minute we will have no rights.
Yes.
In a minute. So that means that the Constitution doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Because of the fact that you dictated to me that I have to do X, Y, and Z. And if I don't, you're going to lock me up. So
it's frightening implications for us as providers, because it opens the door for them down the line to make decisions that will be against the best interest and could be even detrimental to our patients. And yet we can be forced to toe the company line. I have major issues with that.
And see, the other piece of that is this. Did you not take a creed to do no harm?
Above all, do no harm.
So now, if somebody, so he's a governor, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go up into the governor's house and say, yo, boy, this is the way you need to run California. You hear what I'm saying? I know how to run it because I don't run the streets. Okay. I just try to take over his job.
Right.
I don't have any education in politics to tell him how to run California. So if he didn't go to medical school, he doesn't have any degree in that. How can he dictate what it is that you should be talking about in terms of your patient?
And the thing is, if he's listening to advisors, well, if the advisors are all on one side of the spectrum, shutting down the other side is dangerous. I mean, we have had tremendous, particularly in the last, say, 10 years, tremendous advancements in medicine. And those advancements come from people like me challenging the system, asking the questions. Yes, I know this is the status quo, and this is the way that we've always viewed medicine, and this is the way that we've always viewed the body. But what if we try things a little bit differently? Or what if it doesn't function exactly the way that we thought it did? Or what if that medication that we've been using actually is creating more harm than good? If we didn't ask those kind of questions, we would not have the kind of advancements that we've seen in the last 10 years or so. I mean, we've had huge advancements over, hundreds of years, but definitely it's been like on warp speed, and COVID pushed it that much faster. So I think that this is a very dangerous position he's placing us in as providers. And I think the other thing that's very dangerous about it is that if he does go down this road, and there are several other states that are talking about following down this road, I think that a lot of providers are going to jump ship, because we did take that oath and we took it in all earnestness and we meant it. We're here to heal and to help. And if we are being forced to do things that may or may not be in the best interest of our patients, at night, every night, I have to lay down with myself and examine my conscience and say, have I done the best for my patients, or have I done more harm than good? And if I can't lay down with myself and know that I've done for the best for my patient, because I'm being forced to do what someone who has no interest in my patients is telling me to do in order to keep my job or keep from going to jail, then I probably am going to want a different job.
And the other piece of that is the factor that if we go back and look into his campaign finance, did one of them pharmaceutical companies give him a little bit of push monetarily so that he could be in that position to say that, so that they can continue to make their money? Because when you talk about taking herbs and things of that nature, what happens is that means that I just took $5 from their pocket when they wanted the $20, so now they only got 15 and I got 5.
Right.
See, I mean, so that's the piece that's happening, I believe, with politicians and this coronavirus. This coronavirus, what people don't realize, this coronavirus was a moneymaker.
Yes, it was for a lot of people.
It was right. It was a money maker. And so now it's like, how do we keep that money keep going?
Yes.
You see,
you got to keep boosting people.
Right. You see, I mean, because if you're getting billions of dollars when it first jumped off, I want to buy 2 more boats. I need 4 more houses. You see, I mean, the thing is that, for me, in a situation like that, I'd find out how to put a class action suit together. Because I can't go into the governor's mansion or his office or his or her office and tell them how to run the state. So you haven't been to medical school, so you can't tell me how to run medicine. I mean, that's a conflict of interest. It really is. It's a conflict of interest. And so the first person that passes over to the other side because of the governor's ignorance would be the first time that people should start to sue the government for that death. You see, because of the fact that governor had no business with his head in medicine because he ain't went to school for it. Now, if Dr. Fauci come up and say some stuff like that, he got a little more leeway because.
But he also has some very significant conflicts of interest.
Right. You see, and so the piece of that is the fact that. And see, I try to stay out of politics, because if I get in politics, I'm going to be in trouble. That politics is going to be in trouble. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of stay back from that, because of the way I'm thinking about it. But
yes.
The piece of that is true to what you said. So what happens in a case like that is the people suffer because that's like gynecologists. When gynecologists started to get sued a lot, you got a lot of them that said, okay, so wait, I don't do that procedure no more.
Exactly.
Go find somebody that does that procedure. I don't mess with that.
Exactly.
Okay? And so that's the piece that's going to start to happen. And so now the people are going to suffer because of the fact that
the same thing happened. The same thing happened with family practitioners. I mean, it used to be that family practitioners did everything, including delivering babies, and we worked in emergency rooms. And now, if you're in a big city, say a hurricane lives there in New York, I wouldn't even dream of going to New York and thinking that I was going to deliver babies or work in an emergency room. Because now, because of litigation, it's too dangerous for the provider. The institutions aren't even going to hire you because they're afraid of the backlash that they'll get in malpractice if they used a non-board certified emergency room physician or a non-board certified OBGYN. And so while they need more ER doctors and they need more doctors delivering babies, you have family practitioners who can't and won't do it. And the people get hurt. And the result of that is that when you go outside of the cities and you get into these rural areas, there's also a dearth in physicians for them who will provide those services. So women who are pregnant out in the country may have to travel for hours just to have their baby delivered because the system has gotten twisted.
Well, so if I may, doctors, I know we're getting into the politics of this, and so believe me, I would love to go in there. I'm in the insurance world, and I can tell you stories about all this stuff. And you mentioned New York, and I happen to live in Jersey and work in New York, so it's a little, it's a little different situation. Jersey is a little less, complex as in New York, but I can tell you both sides they were rough. And I am actually just listening to you. I was just kind of, ooh, I mean, really, that's almost like a terrifying decision to even hear that's being decreed here, and shared with the public. But you know what? What we're doing today is a show to show people how to really take care of their health and really build their immune system. Hopefully, people will. Education is key, right? So if we can give enough of this to them, hopefully people will know what decisions they have to take, and regardless of what the government would say, they'll still do. And a lot of people did that during Corona. I mean, one thing that we lacked immediately in Corona was, and I'm a witness to this because my wife is in the fitness world and we have a fitness company. We were shut down. so gyms were, whenever there was something that's going to build your immune system, it was not open. You could not do a lot of activity unless you go outdoors and do your thing. And you're in California, forget it. I mean, that's a state that was locked down probably more than any other state, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yet we have Florida, who has not shut down at all, and people were still, having their stuff, and the rates were not any different, than any other state, if not even less. I'm talking about mortality and all the other stuff. So it's amazing where people were engaged, doing their part. They lived a healthy living, concept with Corona. They survived it, and for the majority. Now, of course, there are tragedies. People died, and we know that for a fact. But the bottom line is, we need just to make sure that people understand how their bodies work. The immune system is needing, certain things. We're talking about, some good food here that potentially can help them. But you're right. I mean, if you think about it, if you're not going to be able to make the right decisions, you might want to change locations because it's just not going to work. It is crazy. But Dr. Ekman,
the bottom line is that most people want to do the right thing for themselves. And most people want to be given the information to empower them to self-care and to do it as naturally as possible. And so talking about, how we eat is a prime way to boost our cellular immunity and to ensure that we all want to live long lives, but we really want to live long, healthy lives. We don't say that, but that's really what we want. We don't want a long decrepit. We want a long, healthy life, and that is determined by lifestyle and what we eat and how we care for our bodies. So, having people like your wife available to educate on fitness, and Hurricane is out there doing his part. If you check in and, watch his TikTok videos, you'll see him working it out. We want to talk about nutrition and, to broaden people's horizons, because, we're all in our own little area, and we generally kind of tend to get stuck eating certain foods that we're familiar with. But if we broaden our horizons, we can incorporate other foods that, may come from someplace else, but they're still within season. So we need to educate ourselves about what's growing in season and where it's coming from, because you can import foods from other places. But the key, as Dr. Akmal always points out, is that you want to eat it in season.
And if I may, that's actually a big point. And I've had a few shows before with discussions about nutrition, and that is one of the things that was very common across all these shows, is that because of the way we live today, and because, to your point, food is being exported in off season, and people are eating not in the right time, it is affecting the health period and out. And that's been consensus across all the people that all the guests have had that talked about this. It's almost the same topic that resurfaces every time. We are not like traditionally you would go to the farm, like winter, you have certain foods. Summertime, you have certain foods, and that's all you have. It's not like these speed farms where you have things that are being generated in off time, and they're not as healthy. And there is a correlation. And again, Dr. Akmal, this, more than anyone. I mean, you have more knowledge about food and nutrition than a lot of people that potentially are watching this, in the whole world. And this is not even in the States. It's going to be all over the world as a show. So,
right. So, so when you start looking at foods and seasons, you really have to look at the factor that what grows around your area within 100 miles radius. See, because that has the same energy that your body has, and it has the nutrients that your body needs. The other piece of that, though, is this. If you're from another country, okay, then you should also incorporate foods from that country that you would eat during that season. See, because a lot of people that come from Africa, the Caribbean, places of that nature, what happens? What happens is they want to come to America because we're supposed to be the greatest. So they come, and then they start eating that garbage. And they forget about what they've been eating all of those years. And then they wind up having cancer and diabetes and hypertension and stroke and all of that. And the fact of the matter is their body's saying, you remember when you used to give me them peas and rice? What happened? I mean that kind of thing. So what I tell my patients who are from other countries is that eat foods that are in season here, but also find foods, because there's a lot of Caribbean, African, Latin markets, so they're getting these foods. Go eat those foods, because this sad eating habit that they got in America is killing people. The food is actually killing us. Growing up in the US in the 50s, the food was wonderful. You take a grape, and the grape had a big seed in it. The grape was sweet. You eat a watermelon, the watermelon had seeds in it. We used to do a spitting contest with the seeds. Okay.
I remember those.
See who can spit the seed the farthest. But because we're dealing with genetic modification, we're dealing with Monsanto's, who has monopoly over seeds. We're dealing with other folks who are manipulating seeds. The food is killing us. That's why it's imperative that we eat foods in seasons. On the 15th of September, I'll be doing a 4-week program that's called Cleansing Within Autumn to Enhance the Immune System.
Mm-hmm.
During that 4 weeks, I'll be talking about why it's important to eat foods in the season and how it builds the immune system and the internal body. See, because if we use food as medicine, then we stay healthy. You know, in the Bible, it talked about people living to 360 years old. Now we can barely get past 70. So we have to kind of look at that. We have to look at the way that we're eating foods and what the foods are eating and how the foods are eating. For instance, sea moss.
We're about to talk about that, right?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Everybody is and everybody is doing sea moss. A lot of people are doing sea moss because they saw Kardashian 2 years ago talk about her thing with sea moss. Dr. Sebi talked about sea moss. He was the first one to talk about sea moss. In the 70s, in 72, when I was training hard as a martial artist, we used to use sea moss. We used to use Irish moss, which is called Chundra crispus. Okay. And it was wonderful. And I have a formula now that I put it in. But what people don't understand about sea mosses is that there are times when you take straight sea moss, and then there's times when you mix sea moss with grass. For instance, the summer and the winter are straight sea moss times. You can take straight sea moss. Why? Well, in the summertime, you're going to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
But in the wintertime, the kidneys rule. They rule the water. They're connected to the sea. Their taste is salt. Okay. In the fall and the spring, you add grasses. Why? Because that's when in the springtime, the grass is growing. In the fall, the grass is now going back into its roots. So if you're putting in too much salt during those 2 seasons, it can affect your thyroid, the pituitary gland, which now means it's going to affect your sexual organs. It can affect your kidneys. Your kidneys have to do with your reproductive system. And you got to understand that a lot of people are getting buked. They really getting buked because everybody's talking about this is Irish moss, this is Irish moss, this is Irish. Irish moss comes from Ireland, Norway, Sweden. Irish moss has to come out of cold water. Genus Gacillaria comes out of Jamaica and the Caribbean. That's what a lot of people are getting, and people are calling it Chundra crispus, which is Irish moss. When you talk about minerals, you get a lot of minerals from it.
Mm-hmm.
There's over 12,000 different seaweeds. Wakame they use in sushi.
Right.
Hajiki they use on Japanese food. Dulse, kelp. Kelp is very powerful. Kelp,
Mm-hmm.
and in my formula, I have all of these. Kelp helps to get rid of radiation poison. Okay. So if I go to the hospital and get an x-ray, I come home and do two things. One of them is I soak them legumes overnight, them beans overnight, and I eat them, and especially navy beans. Because navy beans assist in eliminating radiation poisoning. So I take the kelp, put the kelp in the water so that when I eat them, I'm getting that radiation out of my system. Things like cadmium, arsenic. Yeah. So when we start talking about and the modern word is moss. We call it seaweed back in the day. Back in the day, it was like, yo, you get some of that seaweed was over there.
Algae.
And it's also about how people work with it.
Right.
What they put in it. People making smoothies, putting milk in it, putting this in it, putting bananas in it, all of that. That kills it. People don't realize that it kills it. The reason that you put the grass with it, because the grass during those 2 seasons build it with the chlorophyll. And what chlorophyll does is chlorophyll proliferates the blood cell. So it cleanses the blood cell and maintains the integrity of the blood cell so that the minerals from the sea moss can be absorbed in the body and the body can function in such a way where healing is going on within the body.
Now, Dr. Akmal, if someone wanted to get a good quality sea moss, where would be the best place for them to look for it?
They would.
And how would they take it?
Okay, so they could contact me because I have good seaweed, sea moss. But what you want to make sure is that you want to make sure that whoever you purchase it from, you should make sure that their quality is good. You should make sure that they're getting authentic sea moss. And because sea moss has become a commodity now everybody's selling sea moss. Matter of fact, I was driving down the street the other day and somebody had put one of them signs out saying, "We got good sea moss." I'm like, oh, Lord, have mercy. Here we go, But
selling sea moss and mangoes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I guess during next summer, you'll see people on the corner saying, "I got sea moss here. You get your sea moss over here." That kind of thing. But I would tell people to make sure that the quality of it is good. And then, I would say I have a rule that I use, and it's called 5 and 2. 5 days on, 2 days off. And the way that I have people to really deal with that is tell them, say, Monday through Friday, you're taking this. Saturday and Sunday, you don't take it. That way you're not trying to figure out, when did I start? When do I have to end?
Right.
That kind of thing. And each season, you put it in differently because of the fact of the way that you want to get the minerals from it. And again, as I said, especially in the fall and in the spring, you want to add grasses to it. Our component has wheatgrass, barley grass. Off top of my head, I can't remember the rest of the grasses in it. But you want to get that chlorophyll in there because of the fact that during this season, this is a season of chlorophyll. You know, as
Mhm.
as the trees turn orangish brown, that's that chlorophyll coming out, going back deep into the roots. And so your body is doing that because now your body, your digestive tract is starting to slow itself down, which means that everything is starting to go back inside for the healing for the winter, because the winter is the most powerful healing system of them all. It would be nice if people in the wintertime, when December 21st came, the first day of winter, people call their boss and say, all right, now you know you got to pay me through the winter, but I'm gonna stay home and hibernate.
I'm gonna hibernate.
You know, and the
And most of the healing in our body does happen when we're sleeping. And so that extended night of winter does create that space for that to happen.
and
So we're coming close to the 90-minute mark, and we need to kind of start wrapping up. What very briefly would be the key takeaway points that you want our audience to have? And can you give us your contact information, which we will have posted when we air the episode, so that all of our listening audience can easily reach you and get that
so
information?
what I'd like to leave people with is this: your body is a temple. Your body is a chemistry factory. You're the chemist.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware of what you put in it. Be aware of how you think about things. Be aware of what you wear in terms of clothes, because your skin is the largest detoxifying organ of the body. I would say take digestive enzymes, probiotics, and make sure the probiotics come out of the refrigerator. The ones that I suggest to my patients is called PB8. Okay. Eat foods in their seasons. Drink plenty of pure distilled water. And love yourself.
That's some powerful stuff. We're
That
gonna
is
highlight.
very powerful.
We're gonna highlight that one. That's like that. Forget about it. That's like really the advice of life. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, you've had so many great tips, and there was just so much to unpackage. I kept wanting to run off on different. We could spend hours on any one of the things that we were talking about. So we definitely would love to have you come back, my brother, and
yes.
share some more of your knowledge with us. And we definitely recommend that those of you who have listened to the show tonight go check out Dr. Akmal's information. Check out one of his classes. He has fabulous classes with fabulous information. You can also check us out at either one of our sites. You can check me out at Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce at CherylBryantBruceMD.com. And Hurricane, where can they look for your information and our shows?
Yeah, it will be all over the NBC network, the iHealth channel, iHealth radio, the websites. I'll post it all over the place. Trust me. If you're out
Yes,
there,
you'll
you're gonna
find
see,
us.
you're gonna hear it.
And
You will find us.
you
Yes.
can find me at drakmalspeaks.com.
And we will have that on the description of the show, and we will also have a link directly. So when someone goes to the site, they'll click on your picture, your site, and they'll come right to you, and they can order the right stuff, the good stuff that you have.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well,
Dr. Akmal, thank
it's been a
you
pleasure.
so much
And I
for
thank
joining
you very
us.
much for allowing me to be part of your energy and your evening this evening. Be well, enjoy yourself as you peacefully walk in health. Davo.
Thank
Thank
you
you, sir.
so much. And thank you to our listening audience for joining us to hear these wonderful bites of information that will help you to grow in wellness and to help you have healthy longevity. Remember that you are your greatest asset. Invest in yourself. We're Chatters That Matter. Let's talk about it. I'm Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce, MD, the celebrity doc. And we have with us Hurricane H.
Well, folks, thank you for being with us. It's been great. A lot of information. So stay tuned and check out the site, check out the links, and get the information.
And come back and join us again soon. See ya. Have a great week.
Bye for now.
Helpful.